On Monday, Mount Etna has erupted in a fiery show of lava in eastern Sicily. The eruptions can be seen from nearby towns of Catania and the resort town of Taormina. And although volcanic ash clouds can cause flight disruptions, the nearby Catania airport was operating on a normal schedule on Tuesday. And as of now, no danger exists to the towns that dot the mountain slopes. While it seems to be such an extreme natural event, it appears that in Sicily, it's just business as usual.
German cities held their annual Rose Monday float parades, with many mocking U.S. President Donald Trump, Brexit, and European populist leaders. From Cologne to Dusseldorf, the major theme of the float parades this year was U.S. President Trump, whom they depicted performing sex acts with the Statue of Liberty and being decapitated by a guillotine. Another float in the parade showed the Statue of Liberty holding the severed head of the president. The float was likely referencing the controversial cover of German magazine Der Spiegel, in which Trump was portrayed cutting off the head of the statue in an Islamic State-style execution. Trump was joined by Front National French leader Marine Le Pen and Dutch firebrand leader Geert Wilders in a float that compared the trio to a blonde Adolf Hitler.
President Trump wants to spend more money on the military. Let's put that in perspective. The U.S. spent about $600 billion on defense last year. That's about as much as the next 12 countries combined. And yet,
I am sending Congress a budget that rebuilds the military, eliminates the defense sequester, and calls for one of the largest increases in national defense spending in American history.
This hike in military spending is part of Trump's broader budget plan, which reportedly includes big cuts to the National Endowment for the Arts, for the Humanities, and to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. But again, let's put that in context. This is the entire budget. And here are the combined budgets of those three agencies. That's the difference they make in the whole federal budget. To put that another way, cutting the National Endowment for the Arts, which supports artistic projects and education, could buy us one F-35 Joint Strike Fighter.
Armed violence has continued in a refugee camp in southern Lebanon. Gunmen from the Palestinian Fatah Party and Palestine's leading nationalist party and Islamist militants clashed again over several days in the Al Helwa Palestinian refugee camp. The most recent violence started February 23rd. According to Reuters, one man was killed February 28th, and other reports indicate more have been wounded, including a child. Arab News reports that the young boy was wounded to the head by a gunshot and taken to a hospital. Gunmen from Fatah have regularly clashed with Islamist militants in Al Helwa, leading the United Nations Relief and Works Agency to suspend its services to the camp. According to its website, the relief agency suspended services because of its injuries to civilians, damage to UNRWA facilities, and unauthorized entries by armed actors into one agency school. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Rachel Latham. Pakistan has ramped up security measures ahead of an international meeting. The Pakistani capital is preparing to host representatives from 10 different countries, including the presidents of Iran and Turkey. The countries will discuss economic ties on March 1st. In preparation, Pakistan has deployed swaths of new police and paramilitary units throughout Islamabad. The government hopes increased security will prevent any potential attacks planned for the occasion. Pakistan has recently faced a number of attacks at the hands of extremists. Earlier in February, a bombing killed well over 50 people, making it the deadliest in a decade. Similar circumstances last year caused Afghanistan and India to back out of regional cooperation meetings, ultimately causing the meeting's cancellation. And while Afghanistan again backed out this year, Pakistan has decided to move forward with meetings between the 10 countries confirmed. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Rachel Latham.
Despite the fact that we have 2 books and a movie series telling us what a horrible idea it is, scientists would like you to know that it's not a good idea to resurrect an extinct species. In early February, Harvard researcher George Church told New Scientist that he believes he's 2 years away from being able to create a woolly mammoth embryo. A study published in Nature Ecology and Evolution said that this could come at a terrible price. Aside from costing millions of dollars diverted from already existing conservation budgets of any countries involved, it raises ethical questions regarding the sources of embryos that are necessary to the process.
AT&T is helping to create smart streetlights. The company unveiled a program called Smart Cities during this year's Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, and it's already yielding results in the form of smart streetlights. The telecom giant recently signed a deal with GE to install current City IQ sensors on streetlights in cities across the United States. According to Engadget, the test will begin in San Diego, and the aim is for the streetlights to monitor weather and crime emergencies, parking spots, air quality, and traffic circulation. GE is installing the platform as part of a $30 million upgrade to San Diego's lighting system, and AT&T will act as the data carrier. The plan is believed to reduce energy costs up to $2.4 million in the California city. In terms of security of the data captured, a spokesperson from the San Diego mayor's office told Reuters the data will be anonymous with no personal identifiers. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Matt Paul.
Flexing their veto power in the Security Council, China and Russia blocked a new round of Syrian sanctions. Throughout nearly 6 years of civil war, the United Nations Security Council has tried to impose sanctions against the Syrian government on several occasions. Many in the international community argue that Syria has military-targeted civilians and peaceful protesters, but Russia, an ally of Syrian government, has shot down proposed sanctions. Russia, like the US and other countries, has veto power in the Security Council, meaning it can kill any proposal it disagrees with. Russia's downvote on Tuesday, February 28th, was the 7th veto it has issued in the protection of the Syrian government. Russia argued that the sanctions would threaten peace talks currently underway in Geneva between government and rebel representatives. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Rachel Latham. Thousands of Chinese troops participate in an anti-terror rally in the western Chinese city of Urumqi. More than 10,000 of them marched through the streets of Xinjiang province's capital city February 27th as a show of force against what China says are terrorists in the region. Xinjiang, home to Chinese Muslims Uyghur minority, has experienced multiple incidents of ethnic violence over the last few years. Among them, ethnic rioting in 2009 between Uyghurs and Han Chinese that killed at least 197 people, many of them Han. The Guardian reports that there have been at least 2 deadly knife attacks in the region since December. China has blamed much of the violence on the Uyghurs, saying they've been aided by foreign terror groups. The BBC says many Uyghurs complain of discrimination from the Han Chinese. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Rachel Latham. A Georgia couple has been sentenced to prison for pulling out a shotgun and threatening to kill African Americans at a child's birthday party. Jose Torres was sentenced to at least 13 years in prison February 27th. Kayla Norton was sentenced at least 6. In July 2015, Torres and Norton drove past the birthday party with about a dozen other people, waving Confederate flags and yelling racial slurs. Torres pulled out a shotgun and pointed it at the people at the party. He and Norton then threatened to kill them. Torres and Norton wept as they were sentenced in Douglas County, Georgia. Norton apologized to the partygoers who attended her sentencing. One of them, Haisha Bryant, told Norton and Torres, quote, "What you said affected my life. It affected my children's lives." Bryant then forgave them. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Rachel Latham.
That chicken sandwich you bought for a quick lunch might not be all chicken. Researchers in Canada DNA tested grilled chicken from 5 different fast food restaurants: McDonald's, Wendy's, A&W, Tim Hortons, and Subway. None of the samples tested were made of 100% chicken DNA, but it's important to note once chicken is seasoned and processed, it's not expected to hit that perfect percentage. Most hovered around the mid-80s, which is apparently a pretty standard percentage for fast food. But one sample came back with slightly troubling results. Subway strips only had about 50% chicken DNA. So what makes up the chicken if it's not, chicken? In most cases, the meat is filled out with soy. Soy is cheaper than meat, which could be why it's in so many food products. Subway Canada said it can't verify the study's results, but claimed its chicken shouldn't be over 1% soy. The company said it will look into its suppliers' meat quality standards.
Scientists are reporting a sharp rise in colon and rectal cancers in adults as young as their 20s and 30s. Researcher Rebecca Siegel at the American Cancer Society and the National Cancer Institute said, quote, "People born in 1990, like my son, have double the risk of colon cancer and quadruple the risk of rectal cancer compared to the risk someone born in 1950 faced at a comparable age." The new report, published in the Journal of the National Cancer Institute on February 28th, estimates about 13,500 new cases of colon and rectal cancers will be diagnosed in Americans under 50 this year. According to the New York Times, experts say most colon and rectal cancers are considered a disease of aging, so any increase in young adults, especially when rates of disease are on the wane in older people, is both baffling and worrisome. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Rachel Latham.
Wendy's will be the next fast food restaurant to introduce self-order kiosks. The restaurant chain plans to add kiosks in 1,000 locations by the end of the year. Wendy's is following Panera Bread and McDonald's in the push to automate the service side of the fast food industry. A consulting firm that does food service research says younger consumers prefer automated kiosks. A Panera executive says the kiosks boost productivity because they allow more people to work in the kitchen. But the move toward kiosks could jeopardize the jobs of some fast food workers, just as the workforce is campaigning for higher wages and the right to unionize.
Has received a total of $32 million US for this quick response, and the organizations are working on the planning and for quick implementation of these projects. Many of these organizations have been working in Somalia. They have their own local partners, they have their own links, and that knowledge, which also benefits from the lessons learned from the 2011 drought, they're trying to reach all corners of the country where there are people who have been affected by the drought.
For month after month, they have been hiding, living in a swamp along the Nile, while a bitter war burns around them. These people have only now come out because they have heard UN aid workers will be bringing in food that has been in very short supply.
We've not received aid in months. We don't have food. We collect wild fruits and roots of the water lily, cook and eat.
The UN's organizing an airdrop. Over the weekend, it began registering those who dare to come out of hiding. Aid workers say urgent intervention is needed to help tens of thousands of people suffering in South Sudan. However, access to parts of the country hit by famine remains a challenge due to a poor road network, insecurity, and occasional restrictions from armed groups, putting the lives of many here at high risk of starvation. And the most vulnerable are the children, some of them here already showing the classic signs of malnutrition.
Nutrition crisis is not only about food, it is also about health services, it's about water and sanitation, access to safe water and basic services.
This is the first UN visit to Lair County for a year. The UN has accused the government of blocking access. South Sudan's President Salva Kiir has now vowed to ensure aid agencies can get in, but he is insisting this is not a famine, just a food shortage. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
Earlier this month, officials discovered a growing hole in the concrete spillway at America's tallest dam. New photos showed the destruction that water has caused. Officials first noticed the damage to the spillway in early February. A series of storms meant officials had to keep draining water from the lake to prevent it from overflowing. Despite state officials' decision to keep draining the lake, it eventually overflowed onto an emergency spillway for the first time, causing massive erosion. After several days without rain and with lake levels falling, officials finally shut off the flow to the spillway, revealing a massive gash in the concrete, as well as the hillside below. The spillway is expected to remain.
The grand opening of Vancouver's new 69-story Trump International Hotel and Tower was met by protests. Over 100 people gathered outside the new Trump Tower February 28th, chanting, "We want peace," and singing the Canadian national anthem. They also left sticky notes with messages for US President Donald Trump on the side of the new building. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation says one note read, quote, "Not welcome in Vancouver." Trump's children, Donald Jr., Eric and Tiffany, all attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Donald Jr. and Eric gave speeches. Although neither of the brothers took questions from the media, Donald Jr. cracked a joke about the media though, saying, quote, "I'd like to thank the press." Just kidding. Eric called Vancouver, quote, "an amazing city befitting of the Trump brand." For Newsbeat Social, I'm Rachel Latham.
According to South Korean lawmakers, 5 North Korean officials have been executed by anti-aircraft guns. The deputy minister-level officials had worked under the recently fired state security chief Kim Won-hong. According to 2 parliamentarians who had been briefed by South Korea's National Intelligence Service, or NIS, they are believed to have been executed for making false reports to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. South Korean lawmaker Kim Bayoung-ki said Kim Won-hong, the state security chief, is in a house arrest situation after an investigation, and more than 5 deputy minister-level officials who worked under him have been executed by anti-aircraft guns.
Pentagon will conduct a review of the raid in Yemen last month that resulted in the death of a Navy SEAL. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer said Monday, February 27th, that the Defense Department will conduct a 3-pronged review into the commando raid that left Chief Special Warfare Officer William Ryan Owens dead. Spicer's announcement comes one day after Owens' father, Bill, demanded that President Donald Trump open an investigation into the operation, which also resulted in the death of as many as 29 civilians and the destruction of a $90 million MV-22 Osprey helicopter. Asked by reporters to respond to Owens' criticism, Spicer said that he couldn't imagine what he was going through, but reiterated that, quote, his son died a hero, and the info that he was able to help obtain through that raid is going to save American lives. For Newsbeat Social from Washington, D.C., I'm Caitlin Mangum.
Last Saturday, Mac Beggs, a 17-year-old transgender boy in Texas who has been taking testosterone for well over a year, won the girls' 110-pound category in a state tournament. Beggs says that he was faced with either continuing to wrestle in a girls' category, as the state athletics league required, or give up the sport he loves. Beggs told CNN, "I would rather have a chance to compete than not compete at all." The media firestorm, which followed Beggs' unusual victory, has exposed the messiness of state athletic association policies for transgender athletes. Currently, only 16 states and Washington, D.C. allow transgender athletes at the K-12 level to compete based on their gender identity, without any medical requirements, the model currently recommended by LGBT advocates working in the athletic space.
In an interview on Fox News' Fox and Friends, President Donald Trump said he believes former President Barack Obama has been behind the leaks within his administration. In addition, he claimed Obama was behind the sizable angry town hall crowds Republicans have faced across the country. Trump was asked, "Do you believe President Obama is behind it, and if he is that a violation of the so-called unsaid president's code?" Trump responded, "No, I think he is behind it. I also think it is politics. That's the way it is." The president responded similarly concerning recent leaks. In the clip released by Fox Monday night, Trump did not offer any evidence for his claim. CNN has reached out to Obama's office. According to a senior White House official, U.S. President Donald Trump will sign a measure on Tuesday which directs regulators to review an Obama administration regulation that expanded the number of federally protected waterways. The order will kick off what will likely be a lengthy process to undo the Waters of the United States, or WOTUS rule, which was finalized by the Environmental Protection Agency and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in 2015 to clarify which bodies of water are covered by the Clean Water Act. The officials said that federal law requires that the administration undertake a formal evaluation of the rule before a decision is made about whether to rescind the regulation. Under President Barack Obama, the EPA said the rule protects waters that are next to rivers and lakes and their tributaries, quote, because science shows that they impact downstream waters.
The National Weather Service announced that one person was killed when a tornado raked through northern Illinois on Tuesday. The town of Ottawa, just southwest of Chicago, was struck by a storm. Power outages and heavy damage to buildings were reported by the LaSalle News-Tribune, and minor injuries were reported in a nearby village. The storm also pounded the area with golf ball-sized hail. Governor Bruce Rauner was active at that state's Emergency Operations Center. February tornadoes are considered a rarity in Illinois.